Frank Klose, 97.3 ESPN.com, covers the Phillies, and of course you can read his stuff also at sportstalkphilly.com. He's got the mailbag posted, and you can always read the mailbag Tuesdays at 97.3 ESPN.com. We got a couple other news and notes to get into before the mailbag. Frank, welcome back, pal. How are you?
I'm doing well, gentlemen. How about you?
Everything's great, pal. And, yesterday a lot of stuff broke on the website there as you posted at 97.3 ESPN.com. We learned the Phillies will be without Aaron Nola for a couple of starts here. And, number one, how does that affect the rotation here, and who will be replacing him?
Yeah, so Nola, it looks like he had some back discomfort during that last start. He actually got the win, but he was a little uncomfortable there, and it seems like the Phillies are taking a precaution here and not trying to make anything worse. The impression is, or at least in terms of what the Phillies are saying, is that this could be a short stay on the disabled list. The Phillies mentioned when Howie Kendrick went down, which is a different discussion, that the new 10-day disabled list, which was part of this off-season's collective bargaining agreement, would be very, very helpful with somebody like Nola in this situation because, with 10 days and you have an off day, essentially your starting pitcher can be backdated to his last start, miss one start, and then be ready to rejoin the rotation after 10 days. So it's possible. I don't know how probable it is just yet. I have to wait and see for the medical updates, but it is possible that Nola misses just one start and he comes right back. Again, something which couldn't happen in the past without this 10-day disabled list. So that's been a big help so far for Major League Baseball. And yesterday, Jim Salisbury of CSN Philly was reporting that Nick Pivetta is going to take that spot in the rotation. So if you've been following Nick Pivetta at AAA Lehigh Valley, he's been just lights out. He's 3-0 with an ERA, which is still under 1. Now, granted, that's a pretty small sample size, but, I got to see Pivetta pitch a scrimmage against Reading earlier in the season. That's where I took my pictures. And really, it's very intimidating. He's tall. He's 6'7", and I think he's very intimidating to hitters. We know from history the tall pitcher can be really tough to hit sometimes. So I think I'm really interested in seeing how Nick Pivetta does in the major leagues, and I think he's a really good choice to pop up here for a day. For a start or two, hopefully it's only one. But I think comfortable for the start, and if Nola's injury isn't that big a deal, maybe they don't do this unless they really feel like they have somebody who they can plug in like that.
Pivetta, he was brought over here in the Papelbon deal, right?
Right. Ruben Amaro Jr. deserves an award for that trade because, Papelbon didn't even make it through the second season with the Nationals, relieving the Phillies of a huge financial burden, and he got them Nick Pivetta in return as well. So quite a remarkable return for Jonathan Papelbon.
Hey, Frank, other Phillies news coming out is about Howie Kendrick. Looks like he could be on the disabled list longer than the Phillies originally thought. How will they replace him?
Well, the interesting thing was when Howie Kendrick got hurt, he basically said, hey, I've had an oblique injury before. This isn't that. It's different. So they thought it was just something in his rib cage. And it actually turns out it is an oblique injury, which is a little bit alarming. Phillies fans might remember most recently that Cody Asche had that last spring. And when Asche came back a little too soon, he re-aggravated that, and then he was out a little bit longer than anticipated. So really the only real prescription for an oblique injury is rest. So essentially you have to let Howie Kendrick sit for a while, see if he's responding, and you don't want to come back too soon because if you re-aggravate it, you tend to make it worse, and you could be out a really long time. And in response, that's why the Phillies made a trade for Ty Kelly. Now, Ty Kelly is a switch hitter, kind of your utility player type who can play all over the field. He can play any position except pitcher or catcher. So the thought was the Phillies are just fine in left field with the combination of Aaron Altherr, Brock Stassi, Daniel Nava. They have three guys that can play left field, so that's not the big deal. But what we really wanted to make up for was Kendrick's ability to come into the infield if necessary in a pinch. So Kendrick is certainly a long-time second baseman, So they went for somebody like Ty Kelly who could back up the Phillies' middle infield. Because if you don't have somebody like Ty Kelly, then Andres Blanco is your only option up the middle. And so if you have an injury in the game, then you kind of leave yourself exposed if something happens. Or you can't use Blanco as a pinch hitter. So Kelly is a switch hitter. He gives them some versatility. He's probably going to be the bat that comes off the bench the least. He's a small track record with the New York Mets last season. Actually, he was on the opening roster for the New York Mets this year. Then he got squeezed off the roster. The Blue Jays had him for a little bit, and that's with whom the Phillies made the trade. So Kelly's going to get a chance to be a backup for the time being. Again, not so much in the outfield, but kind of giving the Phillies an extra bench bat who can play the middle infield positions.
I saw that Ty Kelly move over the weekend, so I appreciate you clearing that up. Frank Klose with us. So how about Aaron Altherr? Because you mentioned his name a minute ago, and Mike and I have talked about this yesterday. If Altherr continues to hit the way he does, how do they handle the outfield moving forward with Aaron Altherr ripping the cover off the ball?
Well, the Phillies are here in 2017 to figure out questions for the long term. And Aaron Altherr is definitely one of those questions they would love to have answered. Now, it's kind of unfortunate, and we've mentioned this a few times, that the type of injury that he has often takes a while for a player to really get going. We thought back to the likes of Jason Worth and Mark Teixeira, and really taking a good while to really get their you think about how firm, a grip you need on the bat. If your wrist goes down and you really can't give it a really tight squeeze to the bat, then you really lose something there with your swing. So he seems to have fully recovered from that injury that he sustained last spring training. And I think with somebody like him as the fourth outfielder, generally the fourth outfielder plays a lot no matter what. There's always a way. And the nice thing about Altherr is he can play center field very, very capably. He can play left and right as well. Very solid defender. They can kind of plug him in at whichever position. So Kendrick's out, so that's definitely an opportunity for him to play. If the Phillies face a left-handed pitcher and they want to put a lot of righties in the lineup, and he can go in for either Odubel Herrera or Michael Saunders, or maybe they take advantage of having Daniel Nava, a switch hitter, to put both Nava and Altherr in center and right, even when Kendrick's back. So there's a lot of options for the Phillies to get Altherr into the game, and I think that as long as he's playing so well, they're going to just try to ride it the best they can, and playing, mixing, and matching, depending who they're facing for the day. But Altherr is somebody I've always really, really liked. I think he's got a lot of tools. He's a good defender. He has a little bit of power. I'm not saying he's a slugger by any means, but he's got a little bit of power. Can hit some home runs for you. And he just seems like he's so smooth with his defense in the outfield. So it seems to be that he's kind of recovered from that wrist injury, and I think the Phillies will find ample opportunities for him to play on this team.
Hey, Frank, we're talking with Frank Klose, 97.3 ESPN.com, at Frank Klose on Twitter. Give me your assessment of Pete Mackanin's take on the closer situation. I don't want to name one. I don't want to give anybody that name, but I continue to use Neris. Then Neris kind of struggled the other day. So give us your view of what is going on with the Phillies' ninth innings.
Again, I don't think the Phillies want to say somebody is the closer, because if you make Hector Neris your closer, it kind of gives the impression that he's the closer forever going forward. And I think the Phillies don't want to commit long-term to him at that position just yet, for many, many reasons. We've had the frequent discussions, well, is Velasquez supposed to be a closer, or is he supposed to be a starter? That question is going to take all year to play out. And you know what? The Phillies, as we've said before, are going to spend some money. So if they have the opportunity to go out and get a lockdown closer, they might want to do that. And then guess what? If Hector Neris is pitching very well, you have a heck of a setup man in the eighth inning. So I think they don't necessarily want to put themselves in a situation where then they have to take it away from him either. We saw him struggle a little bit. It's kind of funny because if he had blown that four-run lead, it would not have been a blown save. But yeah, he's going to have days like that. So he's still young. He's still going to find his way through. And I think it was just unfortunate the other day that both Neris and Benoit were both unavailable for that ninth inning. Luckily they came up extra innings after kind of blowing the lead there in the ninth. But I think just for the long-term decision, not feeling like you're locked in or giving the impression you're locked in, they kind of want to take it as it goes. And I know when the Phillies won the first game of that little stretch of wins, they really needed that win. So I think Pete Mackanin that day said, all right, look, I'm going to do Benoit in the eighth. I think that was on Wednesday. He said, I'm going to do Benoit in the eighth and Neris in the ninth because that was his best chance to win. So I think when he really, really needs the win, I think he's going to go to Neris. But I do think he is going to stop short of naming a closer. And that's not just a Mackanin thing. Perhaps the organization as a whole is kind of thinking the same thing.
All right, Frank's got more. Check out the mailbag questions at 973ESPN.com. And, of course, every Tuesday, Frank joins us here on the Sports Bash. And anytime any Phillies news breaks, we'll tap into Frank, of course, throughout the baseball season. Phillies, Marlins tonight at the Bank. Thanks, pal.
Thanks, guys.